Hello, everybody. Woo. Yeah, I guess, however you'd like. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome. Welcome to my living room. My name is Phil Donahue.
There's a very limited audience on that one.
Yeah, I know. I discovered that outside, actually. I tried to use it for a second. My name is Ian Rogers, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Ledger. I feel like I'm sitting kind of low. And thank you, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We have about 35 minutes to talk to you all about the future of music and digital assets and how it might put this together. Oana and I had the privilege of doing this together yesterday on a stage in Gotham Hall. So I'll try to mix it up. But let's first just make sure you know who everyone on stage is. So Tokimonsta, let's start with you. We want to introduce yourself. First of all, check out Toki's shirt with the Outcast. Damn.
It's a low-key flex, I must say.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Or maybe I think this is actually a low-key flex
combined with
the Ledger.
With a high-end flex on the neck.
Oh, true.
Yeah, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
So I go by Tokimonsta. I am a music producer, DJ, performer. I'm very active in the Web3 space in terms of seeing what we can do with music, blockchain, and kind of democratizing music. I just played Coachella. My last album was nominated for a Grammy for Best Dance Electronic.
Hey.
Wait, that was a couple of Grammys ago, but that's still an accolade, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
A
Grammy nomination is a Grammy nomination.
First female producer nominated in that category. First female person of color nominated in that category. First Asian American nominated in that category. So.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what was your first NFT purchase?
My first one was a Deadfellas.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was the first piece of music you ever bought?
Oh, you want to know the first piece?
Yeah.
There are two. I bought the single for Chasing Waterfalls TLC and Coolio Gangster's Paradise.
Nice. Jeff Nicholas. Jeff and I.
Show's over.
Yeah.
How are you going to follow
She
that?
still got the mic in her hand. Jeff, Warpsound. Congratulations! Huge announcements yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay, so
is this working? Is this working?
Yeah. So wait. So tell us what is Warpsound and what did you announce yesterday?
Yeah. So I'm Jeff Nicholas, Executive Creative Director for Warpsound. Warpsound is an AI-powered music company. And yesterday, we announced a strategic investment from the founders of Artifact, from Warner Music Group, from Crush Management, and from Sandbox. So yeah, it was kind of a big day, and we had a great event as well for all of our holders. We've got about 4,700 holders. We sold out in about 9 seconds when we launched in January, and it's been kind of a rocket since then. It's the #1 music project on OpenSea and has been since launch. So yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, Jeff and I have known each other a very long time, so this is like full circle.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say, if you look up Ledger's general counsel on LinkedIn, you'll see that his official title is D General Counsel, and he's actually also he's a Warpsound whale. I hope
I
I'm not
wasn't
like
going to call him out, but you called him out, so yeah, he is a Warpsound
So
whale.
if you want to negotiate for any particular Warpsound, I might be able to connect you with someone. But he's a lawyer, so maybe it's not recommended. Oana.
Hey guys, I'm lead digital at Warner Music Group.
And And why did Warner Music Group invest in Warpsound? And what is Warner Music Group doing in Web3?
We're doing a lot. We're investing with Mike's help. We're investing a lot. We're building. The whole idea for us is to rebuild Warner and transform Warner into a valuable Web3 player in the music space over the next few years. So we're making strategic investments to learn and to experiment. And I bought my first Warpsounds a while ago before we invested, so you know.
Love it.
Yeah.
So you're pumping your own bag.
That's
basically.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
I mean, you know, what are we
I
doing?
got
Tell
you.
anyone.
Well, wait. I forgot. Jeff, first NFT purchase.
First NFT purchase was a photograph. I was big in the photography community at the time, so yeah. And the first one I minted was a Bored Ape. So
There you go. All right, nice work. And first piece of music you ever bought?
Nirvana's Nevermind.
Wow.
So working for John Silva was like
Yeah,
holy
full-
shit moment for me,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Oana, first NFT purchase?
I have a crypto kitty, or a few crypto kitties.
Nice. First piece of music you bought?
See, that's way less cool. That was a Def Leppard, Hysteria.
Ooh,
Yep.
nice. I'm not mad at that.
Also, one of my first shows.
Yeah, I'm not.
Fourth row.
Big
Nice.
fan.
That's right.
Wow.
I'm not,
fucking
I'm not, I'm
amazing.
not mad at that. I was more of a
That was a
I was
great
more of a
fucking show.
pyromania guy, but I'm not mad at that. You know, so pour some sugar on me. Okay, Mike.
Mike, Shinoda, Lincoln Park, Fort Minor. I actually went to school for and always thought I would be an illustrator, graphic designer. I always tell people that's where when I was in college, that's where I made money, and music was where I spent money. And I've always felt so lucky that dynamic flipped upside down, and I was able to, do art for, like, in support of my music. And yeah, so like since kind of this my introduction to the Web3 world, it's felt like all of my favorite things have kind of come together into one thing. There's music and the art and the technology all just kind of like coming together.
First NFT purchase?
I was just trying to think about that.
You had a lot of time to think about it.
No, honestly, I'm sitting here going like, I can tell you, and I know for those people that are watching or whatever, I know one of the most notable first purchases that I made was actually one of the fans from my Twitch stream. That she is an artist in Malaysia named Mumu the Stan, and Mumu, right? I'm telling you, they're everywhere.
Is she here? Oh, okay.
Everybody
Okay,
loves
okay.
Mumu. In my community, everybody knows Mumu. Everybody loves Mumu. In the Tezos community, she's actually very, very prominent, very vocal, and very helpful. If you need her, you can come to my Shinoda Discord and talk to her, and ask her all the questions you want because she's there all the time. I bought her NFT because she was like still like working a day job and like really wanted to be like an independent artist, like wanted to quit her job, and I was like, if you mint an NFT, I'll buy it, whatever it is. Like I want to collect your very first one. And since then, like she's gone all in as an artist, and has also just like a great community leader. I always think that she is like one of the great examples in my community that's very tangible about how to like basically go from 0 to 100 just based on your own personal like effort and interest and put in the time.
Wow. And what was the first piece of music you ever bought?
That's easy. License to Ill, Beastie Boys.
Wow.
Oh, there we go.
Excellent. Mixmaster Mike made me cry a little bit last night.
Told me that I believe you too, 100%.
When he did the Yauk thing in New York, I teared up a little bit. But you mentioned something.
Mixmaster Mike played last night. We saw.
Yeah, Mixmaster Mike, and it was I was moved to tears.
Wait, we have to hear your first NFT
Yeah,
purchase.
we gotta
and
hear
your-
yours.
So my first
Necessary.
NFT purchase was actually it was a Winamp, but it was Winamp, which I was on the Winamp team in the late '90s, and it was Julien Rivoire, who actually has now done Ledger business cards, which is really fucking cool. They're very cool. But what he does is he imagines sort of digital things in the physical world. So he did a piece of art, which is a 1-of-1 on Foundation, of what a portable Winamp player would look like, one that you could fold up and put in your pocket.
That's so sick.
And so I bought it for the auspicious price of $1.3 1337 ETH, which if anyone knows the meaning of 1337, if you don't, you can look it up. But that was intentional as well. And I believe the first piece of music definitely the first record I ever put a needle on was Rock and Roll Over by Kiss, but that was because my brother handed it down to me. But I think the first piece of music I bought with my own money was Auto American by Blondie. So I'm older than y'all a little bit. I'm older. But you know what? So on the Warner panel yesterday, we talked a lot about community. And I think it felt, for me, it feels a little open and a little buzzwordy. And that's why I wanted to turn to Jeff first to try to build on yesterday and say community. I see you, I get notifications on my watch from you all the time because you are leading the Warpsound community. You're a creative director, yet you have a voice in this community, and you're really pulling together a community. So what does it mean, and what have you found? Because you launched you launched Warpsounds in January.
In January, yeah.
And so what have you found in these 6 months that is important, works, doesn't work from a community building perspective?
Well, it's funny because, yeah, community has become one of those words that, like, in marketing, authenticity used to be the word that was thrown around in every marketing meeting, you know? But community has become that word. It's like community, community, community. But the reality is that, like, that is what supports a project. If it wasn't for our community, we wouldn't have a project, right? We gave the rights to this music away to the community when they purchased the NFT. They have the full commercial rights to that music and to the art. And that community that has wrapped around that might use that in a certain way, or they might just like to listen to it, but ultimately they're bound by music and technology, right? So for us, you know, what's worked has been that quote unquote dirty word in Web 2 of authenticity. It is being authentic in this space. Like, that actually is the most important thing. And by you saying you get the notifications, like, I'm just showing up every day, you know, doing what I do, sharing what I love, and supporting the others in the community. And by doing that, they then support each other, and it turns into this really incredible space, right? Our community in general is overwhelmingly supportive in a way that I haven't seen in a lot of Web3 communities. It's about, like, they're along for the ride with the technology that we're building and what we're doing. And when someone releases something, they're like all there, they rally around it. It's pretty amazing.
And this may be a bit of a unanswerable question, but who do you work for, right? Do you work for that community or these investors?
It's a good question.
Great question.
Yeah, it's a trick question in this room. No, we
earmuffs, Oana, earmuffs.
Yeah. We do. It's a split focus for us. I'm not doing the political answer of, like, let me weave the thing. It is a split focus for us. For us, if we just listen to the community, they don't have the bigger picture to what we're building and what we're trying to do long term, right? Because we are building in public. But at the same time, there are things that you have to hold back from public in order to have the edge and have the advantage and make the thing that you're trying to do, right? So our boss ends up being split between the mission, not necessarily the investors, but the mission for what we're trying to do, and then how the community is impacting that and using it.
I think that I believe that answer, by the way, and I think it's actually really interesting. When I think about sort of the DAO structure and sort of the future of you know, the LLC being DAOs, I think, well, DAOs have this sort of fatal flaw. It's called democracy, right? Can you imagine if Apple was a democracy? We would not have Apple in the form that we have it. So I think this will be very interesting to watch it play out. Toki, I'm curious, you know, on the projects you've done, like what does it feel like to be an artist and kind of try to figure out, you know, how you interact with the Web3 community versus, say, Instagram, Twitter, you know, the community you've built in other places?
Well, it's really interesting, right? Because you have this public presence that exists prior to Web3, at least for me specifically as an artist starting off in Web2. I think most of our introductions into Web3, NFTs and blockchains were through, you know, visual NFTs, that kind of process. For the majority, I mean, the short-lived majority that it's had so far, I haven't seen a lot of music projects on blockchain or in Web3 that were very inspiring to me. And it's only now that I'm starting to see ways in which I can participate more. Because for me, I would never say never, but I'm not planning to do any PFP projects. That's not something that moves me. I'm into doing projects that will follow through, things where I don't have to self-manage because I cannot do that. So I don't want to show projects that I can't follow through with. And if it's like, a blockchain version of Patreon, that's not going to move the needle for me as an artist, as a human being. So for me, I want to represent Web3 and music in the most practical sense possible. So for me, privately, we're working on a music streaming protocol and platform. But I will share more alpha later, maybe. But
That's a tease, not an announcement.
I know. I mean, it's a little bit of an announcement, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say
so.
that felt like an announcement, but then you said we'll share more
we out
later.
here, But
Well, what can you tell us about it? You're working on a music streaming protocol, you said.
yeah, so it's a protocol and a client. Basically, what world could we live in where music has value again? Music that we listen to in a practical way, not music we're looking at a JPEG that has an audio file attached to it. All of us are very familiar with our beloved streaming platforms that we love listening to, and that's how we interact with music on a daily basis. We don't look at music, we listen to it. So I know there are a lot of different companies and projects where they're trying to push forward music through streaming, but with the way that me and my co-founder are working on our project called Sona is we're trying to work with Web2 music industry, whether it's, publishers, distributors, record labels, catalog owners, and try to show them that you can be a Web2 company and transition to Web3 in a way that is very practical. But yeah, essentially, I just want music to be free. At this point, if you pay $9.99 to any of your favorite streaming platforms, you might listen to Def Leppard for like 99% of the time, but they'll never know that you're doing that. That's not given to them in that way. If I listen to Jay-Z all the time, I just arbitrarily picked him, but if I listen to him all the time, he's never going to see that. But with blockchain, there's that visibility also between the artist and the listener. So if you guys want to listen to Beyonce all day, or if you guys want to listen to Tame Impala or whoever it is, now you have that. And we can create that with blockchain. We can create that with many platforms. I don't want to just I'm not here to show you guys, but that's what's important to me with music and NFTs. That and IP. IP is extremely important to me too. How we can maintain our IP and own that. And I think with blockchain, we can see new ways that an artist can finally make money out their music again and make a living without having to owe people money.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to say things, but
I want to
dig
dig into this more, and I could easily take the rest of the time doing this. So you and I will talk a little bit after, and we'll dig into it a little more in a second. I want to turn to two things. One, I want to talk about the Warner Music sort of relationship that you guys have. But first, I want to take the opportunity to dig into Ziggurats a bit.
Okay.
And so for people that don't know, what's the genesis of that project, and how did it go? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, the idea. When I was coming in the space and I was seeing, 10,000 PFP projects as an illustrator, familiar with how those are created. You basically got, optional layers. The way they're made is optional layers, and then algorithmically assembled into using some percentages and then some randomness to create the stuff that you're collecting. So I took that idea and I wanted to apply it to a mixtape, and I made what is the first generative mixtape, not generated by AI, but generated by algorithm and layers made by me. So I made the art, I made the music. The vocals are consistent across the whole collection, and all the music, if you buy a Ziggurat, which you can find at ziggurats.xyz, if you buy a Ziggurat, you're getting completely unique music with completely unique cover art. And that, to me, while I presented that as okay, this is just a mixtape, and the road might end there, I intentionally, at a time when I released it last year, everybody was doing roadmaps, and it was we're going to build our own metaverse. We're going to build our own planet. And it's all of this very lofty, heavy lifting promises to their communities. I was I have no roadmap. This Ziggurats is the first step of many, and we're going to see where it goes. And I'm now in 2022 looking forward to showing some of the work that has happened from then to now. So by the end of the year, I don't have announcements today, but by the end of the year, you will have seen some more value added to Ziggurats. And I think that the important thing to note between what Toki was saying and what other artists and music say about their entry points like these into NFTs is that it's got to be created specifically to like who are you and who is your audience. Like it has to be bespoke in a sense, and I feel like this thing is what it is to me.
I mean, it's so funny because I used to say this back in Topspin days. You know, and I would have artists that would look at Amanda Palmer, and they'd go, "But I'm not Amanda Palmer." You know, I don't want to put my life on Twitter. And you know, but the reality, and what I would always say, like, you have to do something that is authentic to you and you know, to who you are and what you're doing. And so that wasn't an announcement, but it does sound like alpha. I'm gonna be honest. It sounds like Ziggurats are a buy. I'm just saying. But Oana, you know, you guys are working together professionally, right? I mean, in a music executive kind of way. So I'm curious, you know, how did that come about?
Get meals together, drinks.
Yeah.
Just lunches.
Talk about the same stuff we're
Yeah.
talking about
By the way,
here.
to have dinner with Mike regularly, it requires a salary. No, I'm just kidding. But again, go a little further on what Warner's music strategy is, how you're working together with Mike, and where you think this goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
And also, it sounds like you might want to invest in Toki's company. I'm just saying.
We have talked to Warner Brothers
Yeah.
a little bit already.
Okay.
So
Making deals up here.
I think for us, like the bigger picture, right, is that I think what we see right now is a fairly static experience in music, and it's an experience that the music industry created as opposed to necessarily artists or customers, right? Like the world we're in right now, and we have a lot of big partners and they're great partners, but the world we're in right now has been created by like a defensive-ness in the music industry that has created like a playlisting world that's creating $10 and $0. And the community and the artists and no one actually asked for this world to be built. And so now we're seeing technologies break down some of those barriers. And I think that's one of the things that's most exciting. It's that the technologies, the Web3 technologies, are actually just enabling consumers to do what they had wanted to do in streaming, right? If you look at the gaming industry and how it evolved, what happened in gaming was that games created spaces for communities to get together and do whatever they wanted. And that's what's happening in the music industry now. It's like whatever the technologies are, what is happening is that the technologies are enabling artists or communities to do the things that are personal to them, that are experiential to them. And that's what we're trying to get behind, because it is all going to be bespoke. It is all going to be the word authentic and community, all of those things. And some of it will be trash, of course. But for a lot of it, what we're trying to get behind is this change. And what we're trying to get behind is the consumer and the artist, as opposed to the technology first. And which is why we're so heavily partnered with Mike, because obviously he's been running out in front of this for forever. I'm telling, like, I would be sitting in these Discords, and then all of a sudden Mike would show up, and then everyone would be like, Mike's here, and then he would decide if he was joining the group or not, and then people would just drop off and be like, Shinoda didn't join. So I've been in a lot of those Discords for the past few years, and it's amazing to be working with him, because he has the foresight that we need absolutely at the company.
That makes sense to me. You're going really, where do the consumers want to be, and then what are the artists? How do the artists want to express themselves? And how I'm curious, you know, for either one of you to answer this, because of, you know, and again, Mike is advising Warner on some of the strategy. It seems to me the tough part is, I think the thing that I find exciting, you know, I tried to license MP3s from record labels back in 1999, and first they said, what's an MP3? And second, they said, no way, we're going to sell compact discs forever, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we've come a long way since that, to where there's an acknowledgement that there is a change and there's opportunity through technology, right? And it's true that, you know, Warner has really been, you know, at the forefront of that as a label, back from, you know, my days dealing with Lior at Yahoo Music to Len Blavatnik being one of my investors at Beats Music, right? So you know, that part doesn't surprise me in terms of how that change has affected. But the hard part that it would seem from both the artist and the label perspective would be to be this early.
Yeah.
You know, we say in this space, we're still early, and there's no question it's true. We're all very excited, but it's also still early. So how do you calibrate and not make mistakes? Because you're also the steward of big brands,
Right.
artist brands. Yesterday you mentioned the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
So big brands. So how do you calibrate, like, how to enter without being too early?
Right. Do you want me to go? I think one of the things is to think about the long term, which is why, by the way, I think the market right now is actually a little bit better for being able to think about the long term, right? Listen, when the first were invested in Dapper, when the first NBA Top Shot started coming out and everyone was making millions, I was getting calls from our board being like, where the fuck is my money, right? That was happening, and it's trying to ensure that you're not feeling that pressure and you're not feeling that interest in being exploitative, because the artist audience is there. They're there for a long time, and ensuring that you're respecting that relationship for the long term is important. But just to say it, being always on, creating these NFT projects, you're gonna fail, right? And so being able to and being willing to experiment and try and learn and fail and have an audience that's willing to do that with you is important. The artists that are working with audiences that are like, you can only do this one thing, that's not necessarily the place we want to be in right now.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jeff.
There's an individuality, and you've all sort of referenced it, that can happen and that does happen here in this space that I think is really crucial. It's the technology is a scaffolding, it's a building block, it's a set of tools to create those experiences that relate to your audience or any of the Warner audiences, and there's no one size fits all. And so for some artists and some labels, that'll be great. And for others, they're going to look for, well, where's the template, right? We're not in the template phase yet. We're in the try something new, try something that feels authentic. Does it work? Does it not? Put enough stock in it that if it works, you can follow it, but if it doesn't work, that you can pivot. And some people are built for that and some aren't, but
yeah.
It's kind of the beauty of decentralization and the tools right now, right?
I think that's a really great and important point, and it's one that speaks to me personally, because we had a company called Topspin that was very much about building bespoke sites for artists, but I would argue that Bandcamp did what we were trying to do at scale in a better way, and ultimately we were unsuccessful and Bandcamp was successful. They got to the point where that template could actually power a Sub Pop or a Matador or a label like that, and I think there could be something similar here. And my prediction in some ways is that the MySpace of tomorrow will be, instead of the contents of your hard drive, the contents of your wallet. Those pieces on that MySpace page of next year will get you access to the community, and actually then it will be that once that ecosystem exists, selling the templated product will make more sense, because the templated product will have a gallery or a home, and it will have a utility as well. So this is my prediction. Let's get together in 5 years and see.
The Bandcamp thing wouldn't have happened, though, had it not been for people trying things like Topspin, right? And that's kind of where we're at now. If people aren't trying things now, then those things won't happen later.
Yeah. So we're low on time, so I want to have some questions from the audience. Before we do, if you have a question, please get it ready. And what I'd like to do is for, starting with you, Toki, to talk about, that this topic is about IP, and you mentioned IP. So where do you think that, where does this go relative to intellectual property for artists, and how might this change the kind of business situation for artists?
I think there's been a lot of press over the past decade, especially recently, about IP and ownership. That's why independent labels have gotten so big. I even, when Arcade Fire won, it was like, wow, as someone that wasn't really on a full major at that time, winning the Grammy, that was, I don't even know how long ago. It's been a while. So we're all cognizant of that now. We're living in an age where ownership is so important, and we finally have the tools to understand that 15, 20, 50-year record label deal where they own your masters forever is not okay. When you're getting these advances, you have to go and pay that back. You have to recoup advances from labels. And I think young artists that are not aware of how this major label system works don't understand that. They just think they got this $1 million, $2 million advance, and that is just in their pocket. They have to recoup that. Maybe there's options that labels take. That means that if I sign you for an album, I have an option for 2. I get to pick as a major label whether or not you get to put out those next 2 albums. These things are what we're working through, and I think the music industry is working through, understanding that is not an egalitarian, fair way to treat creators that are creating the things that we all love the most. A very trendy word actually in the music industry right now in music tech is the democratization of music. And we can see that through blockchain. We can own our IP, we can share technology, and everyone gets to benefit from more amazing music. And so it's important for me to make sure that artists are able to own their IP while still benefiting a system that we're all familiar with. And yeah, I don't know. I can keep going on, but then you guys don't want that to happen.
And Mike, I'm curious how you think this might change the dynamic. And then Oana, I'm curious, how a label like Warner gets ready for that.
I mean, for me, you'll notice that Linkin Park hasn't gotten involved, right? Like, there are steps that an established brand, I believe, like if you know your brand, if you know your audience, you would take things a certain way that are very different. You'd approach it a certain way that's very different from an independent artist that's building up from scratch. So part of my role in since we didn't like literally describe it, I'm doing community advising for Web3 for Warner Records, Warner Music Group. And part of my role is to look at some of the things that we're talking about and that the label and the artists and the managers and community are interested in, and try and apply my experiences over the last couple decades to those things and say, okay, if I'm at this stage of my career, like, how do I respond to that? How do I feel about my IP or my music, my art, my whatever get treated in these different relationships? Because I love the fact, by the way, that thinking of warps in the conversation, like, let's say you get pitched, like, here's how we want to release your project, okay? The way that sounds to each person on the panel sounds very different. Like, as soon as you start talking about, like, oh, this is a 10-year-old, a brand that's been around for 10 years versus a brand that's brand new, somebody on a major label versus independent, somebody who's a real human being in a band versus a solo artist versus a virtual artist with AI created music, like, the applications, the way you have to approach things in the space are completely different in every case. So it's up to, the hardest part to tell the audience is that unfortunately there aren't templates for you. Like, in this space right now, you have to really do your own research. You have to dive in. When somebody says to me, well, what should I be doing? One of my first questions to them is, what's your favorite project out there right now? What platforms do you love? What NFTs have you bought, blah, blah, blah. And if the answer is, I don't know, I don't know, then they certainly,
There's step one, yeah.
Your first step is to go figure it out. Go figure out what you like. And whatever you gravitate towards will teach you about what your personality is in this space.
Yeah, and I'm going to pitch you on a series right now. Maybe Warner wants to get involved, but I think that what we do is we say, okay, you've just made Hybrid Theory, right, just now, and we're going to drop that into a bunch of different decades, right? So the time that when Hybrid Theory came out versus 15 years later versus today versus 1967. And then we're going to go 25 years into the future. We could do 8 episodes easy, right? Right? We do this?
We're in.
Okay, we're done. We did this. Okay, but if you had Hybrid Theory sitting on your hard drive today, what would you do differently?
Well, I think, God, it's such a hard question. I think the first questions that I start to ask are, am I independent or am I signed to a major? What are the terms of the deals? And these are the questions. These are the conversations that we start to have, which is like, who owns what, right? And if that's like, I hear what I get nervous about in those conversations is like an artist who says, I have such a good idea for a drop or a project that I want to do, and I've talked to a couple people at management and label about it, and they're not ready. So the roadblock is, oh crap, like the artist loves it, they know the fans are gonna love it, and everybody in between isn't ready to go.
I think you're
we
describing
need to fix that.
Our Get Busy Committee experience together. Sorry, that's an inside joke, but factual. But it's true. I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's tough.
No, yeah, you got it, because you've got to get it to market. Whatever the product
Yeah,
is, you have to get it to market and get it to market in the right way for that time. And this is ostensibly what the label system does, because they're in the business of doing that every day.
Yeah, getting the right piece of content and the right format to the right audience at the right time, across time, at the right territory,
Yeah.
right language. All
And
of
to
those
get the
things.
full answer to my question, it'll be in like maybe the third or fourth episode of our show.
I mean,
Toki?
honestly, like what's beautiful about this space is we're talking about bespoke, right? You have bespoke companies coming out using blockchain for label services, or you have like CreateSafe helping with other aspects of the music industry that are not as clear in Web 2, that are weirdly clear, becoming more clear in Web 3. And I think that music labels, like, because I still own a music label too, and I think there's really important ways that artists can utilize all these things, but now we can just finally show like up and coming musicians, these are available to you. You can participate in any way that you like. If you need more, you can do this. If you want to be super DIY, you can do this. And it's all transparent. And that's the great thing about Web3.
Listen, I'll tell you what I always said is, there's only two people who matter in the music industry: people who make music and people who love music. The rest of us are in the way by definition. So we have to provide value or get out of the way, right? And that's what it is. Let's take two questions. We're out of time, but let's take two questions before we go.
Hey guys, great panel. First time I've heard something so good about music in years. I'm Dhruva from D Hidden Polygon. I build NFT utilities. If you guys need help, happy to help anytime. I'm also I've set up festivals back in India and helped independent artists. So it's very down the road. So my question to you guys is, you've explained a lot of your perspectives, but to independent artists out there, I believe that there's an asymmetric opportunity and advantage for them to stay independent and democratize their music, but it's hard for them to see it, especially because they're struggling and I don't really see it. So opening it all to all of you, what words of motivation can you tell people to look for innovation and to try a new path instead of going for solutions that are established and finding a way that's already been solved for people?
Go ahead, Toki. I feel like that independent side.
Okay, I'm going to be very honest. I'm a little deaf because I do DJ often, so I need the question repeated to me. Sorry.
Yeah, is saying he feels there's asymmetric risk for artists to stay independent. Am I
Risk or benefit?
asymmetric benefit?
And
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
And risk. So how would you encourage an artist to stay the independent path?
Yeah, so it's hard, right? Like when you go with a label, it doesn't matter. They're providing you infrastructure, and it's like a lot of people who make music don't really know how to do anything else but make great music, and they shouldn't have to. You don't have to have your business hat on and your music hat. Some of the best musicians, I believe the best musician in the entire world is in someone's basement, their mom's basement, making dope-ass music we'll never hear. You have to be able to go and either be good at delegating someone to help manage you. That's why management and stuff like that can be very important. Or you have to be the one that's assertive enough to get your music out. Used to be mixtapes on the street. Now I guess SoundCloud links or whatever it may be. But there is a lot of risk involved and a lot of disappointment because you're not going to necessarily get your hands in the right people right away, right? You would love your music to be in Mike Shinoda's hands or in Warner Brothers' hands. My hands, I'm not sure if it's as important, but you have to be okay with failure to be in the entertainment industry. But I think that if you work really hard, and first of all, your music has to be good, the opportunities are there for you, but you have to be okay with all
Jeff?
the other parts.
Yeah, well, I totally agree, and I think the one thing, like spending the last 20 years marketing music in some way, being a music lover who has marketed music, right? The label offers so much infrastructure to break through the noise, to get to distribution, to all of those things, right? But in this climate, an independent artist can all of a sudden do a lot themselves that can get them to a place of visibility that can then get them to the place of getting the right partners involved to then take them up to the next level. So I think what's happening though is a lot of independent artists think I can just be purely independent in this space. And the reality is, like, there's probably a ceiling because of what you just said, where an artist might be great at making music and great at cultivating a core community, but to then get bigger than that, they need to tap into something bigger. And so we host a lot of spaces around, you know, music in Web3, and a lot of the conversation is do that, and do it as a positioning play to find your bigger partners, the labels, the PR agents, whatever you need to go further.
I think that's an important point. Nobody's ever done anything alone, right? I mean, we worked with a band called Metric once upon a time that actually cracked the top 5 with no label. But I will tell you, they had more people working on that project than they had if they would have had a label. And that was exactly what they knew they had to do, right? Was to put all the people around it to make that happen. If you look at Deadfellas and Betty, you know, they did exactly, they're not a music artist, but they might as well be, right? They're a culture, and they got themselves to a certain point, and then they reached out and they asked
to build the team.
And they built a team around it to bring it to the next level. So we're gonna take one final question, and then we bounce.
My name is Bernard Parker. To add to what you just said about that, I released an artist independently in 2015, got a #1 record with him on Billboard, got a Grammy that year with him, for writing on other projects, and you definitely hit a ceiling. You have your benefits, but you also have your disadvantages when it comes down to being competitive in the marketplace for visibility, and getting your music out to be discovered a little bit more than what you have it. But my question is, are you all aware of any solution for legacy artists that are trying to transition into Web3? Because the biggest issue right now in our industry with legacy it's a hard word to say, because the legacy artist in the music business now is an artist that was released 5 years ago, right? 3 years ago, traditionally, I say 5 is a legacy artist, right? Right? So, there is a huge issue with associated with the rights ownership of records and transitioning into Web3. So when it comes down to deploying these assets into the marketplace, you know, companies like Citron Cooperman that are high-level forensic accountants for our business, it's hard to put a valuation on these assets because of the conflict in ownership, right? And metadata associated with it and the attributes of it as it transitions into NFTs. Are you all aware of any sort of solution that can or ahead of the curve of how that can be rectified?
Okay, I maybe taking a little bit from the last question and a little bit of this question. I'd say a couple things. One is that collaboration, I just want to address that real quick. The collaboration piece is so important because the next iteration, whatever it is you choose to do with your artist, or if you're an artist you choose to do, you're going to be required as an entity to do much more tomorrow than you used to have to do 5-10 years ago. Like, you can't just be an artist on the laptop in the basement anymore. That doesn't work. You have to either be multidisciplinary or have a really good sense of like what you want and find people to fill those roles. So collaboration is essential now. And then taking that a step further, once you have found those teams to fill in things like graphic design, like making your content and your videos. Maybe you have somebody else who's better at social media than you are because your artist is like not really into that. Let's say you get to the point where you're ready to really dive into the marketplace and address what you just asked. I think in that point, if you have an artist who's established, legacy or whatever you want to use, like you've gotten to that point where you've got a fan base, I think we're at the moment right now where the most important thing is to communicate to your fans that you're not being greedy. Yeah. This space got really greedy last year, and it's one of the things that I've had to address coming in. One of the reasons I came in by myself and not with the band, one of the reasons that I think some of the projects didn't do well is because they telegraphed immediately like, we're trying to make a buck. Like, that's not where we're at. We have to be able to look at it again as collaborators, as community members and community leaders, and say like 99% of the people that I'm talking to on my Twitter feed don't really know about this stuff, and a large percent of them actually actively don't like it. So we've got, I'm not even talking about some of the technicalities that you talked about if you've got label partners, if you've got publishing partners, all of those specifics. But enter the space with a sense of generosity, because to me, Web3 is about one of the parts of it is value, and I think what a lot of us were drawn into it is that you share. The artist shares that value with their collaborators and shares that value with their community.
That's an incredible way to end this panel. So thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody on the panel.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for everyone for being here. Really, truly, thank you everyone for being with us at Ledger for this day. I appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sah Haddad.
Hi, my name is Katie Rago.
Danny Laviaga.
Johnny.
Danielle.
My name is Matthew Soares. I've been a Ledger user for probably about 8 months now.
I've been a Ledger user for about 8 months now.
2 months now.
3 months.
About a year and a half.
The last 2 months.
Since today.
I am in the Web3 for